Hey everybody, I'm back with my good friend Lynn Falk at Retail Works, and I love Lynn and I love her company because they do more than talk about selling retail. How are you, Lynn?
Very good, Alan. Thank you. How are you?
Good, and I heard the Great North White has white no longer, so what, it got warm?
It did. I think we're up to 54 degrees right now. Very excited.
Good. Well, you guys deserve it. Okay, as we know, we never have a ton of time for these, but when we talked about what we wanted to talk about today, and I think about the uses for it, it is so perfectly spot channel. So let's talk about aromas and how that was aromas and how that fits in with retail. So have at it.
Okay. Well, and I just want to start by saying our olfactory sense was the first of all of our senses to develop. So it's the oldest sense. And what's interesting is it bypasses the intellectual part of our brain and goes right to what we call the limbic part of our brain. And that part of our brain affects and controls emotions, moods, attitudes, appetites, perceptions, and sexual urges. And that's why it's so powerful. So the fact that when we instantly smell something, it sometimes will take us back to an old boyfriend or girlfriend or to grandma's cooking or whatever, but it puts us into an instant emotional place. And there's a doctor, Alan Hirsch, I'm not sure if anyone out there has heard of him, but he's been the director of the Smell and Taste Research Institute in Chicago for years. And he has developed quite a few scents for hospitality and retail environments. In fact, he's got something called olfactory branding, where he will develop a signature scent specifically for casinos, hotels, and department stores. And he has learned which scents will affect us biologically. So he's learned that there are certain aromas that will affect, for instance, the alpha waves of our brain. And vanilla and spiced apples and lavender have all been shown to calm people and relax people, whereas aromas like citrus and jasmine tend to be more stimulating. So it's interesting to be able to apply then some of these aromas to specific selling environments if we want people to be able to relax or to move through the environment quickly.
Yep. All right, Lynn, you mentioned about 10 subjects in there that would make for about an entire 6-day series on scent, fragrance, aroma. But a couple things, you know me and my notes, right? There are a couple things that caught my ear immediately. The first one I just want to address real quick is attitude, because we look for people to walk in the door of a spa, salon, medical spa. They need to have an attitude shift. I mean, most people don't walk in going, hey, I'm already ready for my treatment. They need a quick attitude shift, right?
They do, correct. And the other thing to keep in mind when you are selecting that aroma to affect someone's attitude is it has to be subtle, because you can also turn someone off if that aroma is too strong. So talk about someone comes in through the front door, if all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, what is that? We don't want that effect. We want something that's very subtle, that someone is aware that there's a scent in the room, but it's not a turn off. And that is probably one of the most important things to think about. And also natural essential oils. If we can use those to disseminate into the room through some sort of vaporizer or some machine. In fact, a lot of times they're putting through the HVAC systems, but that's better than these awful chemical plug-in scents. You don't want to be.
Those aren't scents. That's imitation fragrance, and that doesn't solve anything for anybody. Also, you mentioned, and we know this, how the fragrance, your brain is amazing that it remembers something that was a year ago or 25 years ago or whatever it is. I love that part. I also wrote, it's ironic that we are talking about how to use fragrance when we all know that over the course of the last 2, 5, 10 years, people don't wear fragrance in public. Don't smell of anything because what? We offend. It might not. Someone might be allergic to it. What is it?
All of those, yes. So, but that's usually because they are too strong, applied, too heavily, and there's a lot of times they're synthetic. So if we can go with the natural essential aromas, they're much easier to take, and then again we do it subtly in small doses.
Yeah, I think if you're an operator of a facility, and you and I, we've done a number of these videos where we have talked about colors and materials and all kinds of other things, but this is really, if you ask me, and here's the pyramid of things, you would be on the top of the pyramid would be what is the scent? What is the fragrance? How do people come in and we want them to be calm? We want them to relax. This has got to be the number one item.
It is, definitely. And that's where, you know, certainly in your industry, a lot of people do know those essential oils that will help people relax, and lavender being at that top of the list. And lavender is also very universally liked. So it's a good basic one to have going. But I also like to, you know, mix it up a little bit. So during the seasons, you know, perhaps in fall, you want to do something that is more maybe of a spiced apple. And sometimes I'll just have someone take a little crock pot, put it behind the reception counter and throw in some water and some spices or cinnamon sticks or whatever, turn it on for a half hour and then turn it off, and that's just enough to have it into the environment. And then at the holidays, maybe get a pine. They have actually an essential oil from pine trees. You know, so I also say, depending on, you know, if you've got a lot of repeat customers, let's mix it up a little bit.
Okay, last note on fragrance, and then we'll say goodbye and we'll schedule up that next video. But this just popped into my head, right? Like we're talking scents, and all of a sudden I have that. You know when they say when you're trying to sell your house, like to bake cookies the night before or something like that, it's an automatic. I mean, people never go, oh, I hate the smell of those chocolate chip cookies. Where are they? You know, you got to revisit. If you're not doing something with scent or fragrance, you have to do it. Okay,
well,
Lynn.
By the way, I have a couple more quick statistics I just want to share with you.
Give me quick. Go ahead.
For a long time, but studies have shown that customers will spend sometimes up to 20% more in shops that have just a simple scent, and they also think they have spent less time in the store if there's a slight scent in the store. And then finally, this Dr. Alan Hirsch, he actually took a Nike sneaker and he had shoppers look and evaluate the sneaker in an unscented room and in a scented room. And in the scented room, the shoppers were willing to pay over $10 more for that sneaker. And they said they were more likely to buy the shoe. 84% of the shoppers were more likely to buy the shoe in the scented room. That's how powerful scents are.
If I didn't know any better, I'd say that's crazy, but I know better, so I totally get it, right? Okay. Lynn, always a pleasure. Listeners, reach out to Lynn. Her firm is amazing. They are a wealth of everything inside and outside your four walls also. So stick with it, and Lynn's information will come up. Lynn, thank you a ton, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend in Chicago.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan.